and we are plugged in. We are coming up to the end of July. This is The Jump Off, and I am your host, KOD X Factor, and we are a part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network, and all the guests that appear on this show and future shows are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network as well. Y'all know the saying, you hear the music, you know we about to dive right on in to some great gaming news and conversation. Think of this more of like a conversation starter. Some of you guys, there's issues that are brought up all the time that are surrounded with the gaming industry, different things that are brought up all the time. And a lot of people go to either their online, whether Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, whatever the case may be, or they're just talking with their friends, at their apartments or at work, at home, whatever the case may be, about some of the stuff that's hitting the ways and form of gaming news. This is an avenue for everybody to have conversations and to debate. Everybody who knows me personally, I was always a big debater. No matter what podcast I was a part of, the GSM podcast, the Gaming Sports News podcast, which is still going. We're just taking a little bit of a hiatus right now. Always debating. It's always a topic of conversation. It's always something to debate and always worth a debate. And there's always something popping up in the gaming industry to do that. Now, with that said, there are a couple of things that came across just this past week. And as you guys know, we didn't have a lot of content that went up last week. Me and the family were at Myrtle Beach. I was enjoying some great vacation time, getting plenty of sun that is now peeling off the top of my head. And had a great time at the beach. Ate way too much over the weekend that I was there and did a lot of cool things. But we were away for a little while, but I got a chance to kind of get rejuvenated. And we had a couple of stories hit, one in particular while I was away. And I wanted to quickly revisit it and talk about it a little bit on today's show. And that is that Microsoft, or the rumors are now coming out about Microsoft's new system that they're currently working on, codenamed Scarlet. Now, we talked about on this show last week in particular about what Microsoft may talk about at Gamescom and the fact that they said they had new hardware to show, and then they had to backtrack and say, no, it's not necessarily hardware, just new bundles, which I kind of figured was going to be the case. But now there's new reports out there about what they are currently working on as far as a next-gen system, even going as far as giving kind of a release window as far as year. And the year is kind of telling to me, and it kind of fits on par with what I think Sony's going to be doing as well. Now, we all know, based on especially this year's E3, we're not going to see any kind of new hardware next year. There's not going to be, or at least there's not going to be a release. We're not going to say, hey, there's new hardware coming next fall. Guys, get prepared for some new systems. That's not going to happen. So next fall, go ahead and erase it. It's not coming. We're not going to get any new hardware from either PlayStation or Microsoft for a new hardware system or next generation, as you will. But they did go out on a limb and say that 2020 is going to be a prime year for a new Xbox, which is, right, as we've said a couple times already, codenamed Scarlet. We don't know what this new system is going to look like. We don't know what it's going to have behind it power-wise. They just did the Xbox One X last year, and we figured, hey, they're going to give at least the Xbox One X a few years of lifespan before they start venturing off into new hardware, which is what they did. Now let's look at the lifespan. Let's look at the lifespan of the Xbox One as opposed to the Xbox 360. Are we going down the same length of time? Yeah, possibly. Maybe a little bit shorter. It seemed like the Xbox 360 lasted just a little bit longer, but I think they're kind of falling right on par with their previous generation, year-wise. If 2020 is a year that we see them. And when we look at both the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, I can say that the Xbox One, and mostly just games in general this generation, have not been, not on par with what I've seen generations past. If you go to any retail establishment and look at the wall that these games would have been on, the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, you're going to notice that those walls are much, much smaller, and the quantities of games are much, much less than they were on the previous generation. Xbox 360 was loaded. Had a lot of shovelware, so I will give it that. That it seems like this generation kind of cut back on the amount of shovelware that we got. But the previous generation before that just seemed to have a lot more variety. We didn't get a whole lot of the remasters and the reboots that we've got this generation. And we talked about that last week as well. When it came to the fact of reboots and remasters. Didn't we get quite enough of that already? And it seemed like this generation was kind of packed with that. But the rumor and the reports that are coming out is that 2020 is going to be the year that we see the new Xbox. And there's going to be two different variations of it. Now, take it, these are just rumors and speculation. There is nothing concrete behind them. There is no evidence to support this. Obviously, you know Microsoft's going to deny any kind of rumors or anything like that. So don't quote me on saying this is authentic, because it's not. This is just speculation and stuff for us to talk about. That there's going to be two iterations of the new Xbox. There's going to be the standard console that we have now, where you buy a copy of the game, you pop it into the system, and you play it. How it's going to function is yet to be determined. And then they're going to offer a variation of that same system, except it's going to be a streaming box, much like what the Xbox Game Pass does now. And the Xbox Store, you buy the game, you download it, and you can play it right off of your hard drive. You don't have to buy a physical game. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this not the exact avenue that the Xbox One went down initially when they first announced this thing and said this is going to be an online system where you don't have to buy games for it anymore from a retail place or a physical copy of the game? You download it and you stream it from a service, or you play it off the cloud. That was the big thing, and everything was played off of the cloud. This new system is going to be doing just that. It's going to be playing your games off of a cloud system, and then you play the games or you stream them from a service. My guess is going to be much like the Xbox Game Pass does right now. Except the only difference with this is all games are going to be available day one when they launch the physical copies. But for those of you that that complained last generation about them not having a physical game or a CD to install or whatnot, everybody that thought that was such a bad idea, well, you'll be happy to know that they're going to be offering that system as well. That are going to function pretty much the same exact way. They're going to operate. They're going to play the same games. The only difference is one's going to have a CD drive where the other one will not. And there's also going to be another difference between the two as well. One is going to be more expensive than the other. No pricing was rumored at this point, so if you want to go out on a limb and speculate how much some of this may run, please feel free to speculate. I don't have any rumors to report to you as far as numbers go, so I can't really comment on it. But you're going to have one CD drive version and you're going to have one Streambox version. Both will be available at the same time. One will be available cheaper than the other. My guess is we're probably going to see one about $100 cheaper than the other. And if I had to guess, we're probably looking at about a $500, maybe $600 price range. $600 for the CD version, $500 for the Streambox. Now, again, these are just speculations. These have nothing to do with what's actually going to happen because we don't know at this point. A lot of this stuff is still in development. But if they are pushing for a 2020 release, and this is kind of like what I keened up on really, really quick. If they plan to launch this thing in 2020, 2 years away, excuse me, then this system is much more further along than we realized it was. Now, I'm sure, especially with the Streambox version of this, It had to have been a lot easier to develop that because they already had something in place for this generation. This is what the Xbox One was supposed to be. It's not now, but it was what it was supposed to be before. And now that streaming games, not necessarily us streaming gameplay, but downloading games and playing it, have become much more adaptable than they were previously. Excuse me. And this goes from system to system. Because now if you look at it, both systems, the Xbox and PlayStation, offer services where you can download and stream games directly from them for a monthly fee. That's kind of what they wanted to do initially with the system, and now it just seems like the audience is starting to catch up to that idea. Before, everybody was so used to the physical-based games, the CDs, the CD drive, it has to do this, it has to do that. Not many people were keen on digital copies of games. Now it seems like more and more people, a lot more people than used to be, are more open to that idea. And we talked about on a couple shows ago as well that Google was working on a stream-based system as well. So does this seem like Microsoft is necessarily maybe trying to compete with what Google may have to offer somewhere down the pipeline? Who knows? But this was the initial thought process for the current Xbox that we have now before they had to switch things up and revamp it to what it is today. But it seems like they took their initial thought process and what they wanted to do previously, and they're now going to push it into this upcoming system. But the fact that they're going to be offering another system that functions the exact same way except it has a CD drive and you can buy physical copies of the game is going to appease to those fans that boycotted it initially to begin with. The only problem I see now, or not necessarily problem, but the only thing I see now is that less people are going to be likely against it because it seems like it's more and more the norm now when it comes to digital versions of the games. Now, I've always been of the mindset if I get a digital copy of a game, it's got to be at least cheaper than the physical copy. And the reason why I say that is because a physical copy costs more to produce than a digital one. The cost of a digital game has got to at least be dropped by $10. It's got to be offered at $49.99. Some games do that. A lot of games do not. They charge the same amount than you would with a physical copy. And when you talk to most gaming fans out there, especially ones like me and those that collect a lot and have a pretty big collection of games, are always going to steer more towards the physical copies of the games themselves anyway. But if you offer the same game in a digital version, much cheaper, or cheaper anyhow, than the physical version, you may get more people inclined to get digital versions of games than physical ones. And then the developer doesn't have to worry about secondhand purchases of games. You don't have to worry about a trade-in program or people buying used games here and there, and then the developer not getting any recoupment from those used sales. If they want to really, really combat that, then they have to start dropping the price down of the digital versions of games when they first launch. It's got to be cheaper than the physical ones. This will at least draw at least a percentage of audience to digital versions than opposed to the physical one. If you mean to tell me that I can get the same game, play it the exact same way, $10 cheaper as opposed to having a physical one, and then I don't even have to go to a store and get it, or I don't have to wait for it to arrive in my mailbox. I can play it as soon as the clock hits like 12:01 a.m. You're going to have a lot more people inclined to do a digital version as opposed to the physical one. And that, I think, could help out the new Xbox. Especially when they're talking about a system that is currently, or that's going to be constantly online, and it's going to be a digital version or streaming for all of their titles. I'm okay with that. But that 2020 date, it sticks with me because it's like, are you really that close to launching the system? That means they got to be ready to announce it next year, next summer, and then show it off the following summer during E3, much like they did with the Xbox One. Show it off give us a price point and a release date. That puts next year's conference in a different situation than it was this year. This year we got a whole lot of games. The year prior we actually got a whole lot of games. But now we look forward to next year, and if it's coming out in 2020, they have to announce it next year. I think PlayStation is going to be around that same wavelength. Although I would not be surprised if Xbox jumps the gun and tries to launch their system before the Sony does. Because we know that they're working on the PlayStation 5. They've already announced that. The only thing is we don't know the date. Or we have no rumors coming out of that camp about what that system possesses or what it has with it. But I think an announcement for that's going to come next year too. But if the system comes out in 2020, we've got to hear something about it next summer. And then the summer after that, we've got to get what the system looks like. They're going to be like, here it is. This is what it is. This is what its name is. This is what it's called. This is the price. And then we'll go from there. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about today, and I've got like a lot of news stories that are kind of hitting my box here. And a lot of them being, with the Xbox One free games with gold for August were announced. And I got to say, their games for gold for August actually look really, really impressive. We're getting Forza, I think, was it Horizon 2 or something like that before the new one comes out. We are getting Dead Space 3. We're getting For Honor. And what was the fourth one? Disney Epic Mickey 2. Which is a 360 backwards compatibility title, along with Dead Space 3. So we're actually getting quite a bit next next year, which is quite not next year. I'm sorry, next month, which is actually quite impressive. But what I wanted to kind of talk about today is a new thing that, and we always seem to always talk about GameStop somehow. What it has coming. What is the company doing that they're looking for buyers? The company's in trouble. Physical games are starting to become on the downslope, whereas more digital copies are coming up. GameStop has just announced that they are putting together arcade units. We're talking about regular arcade cabinets, people, retro arcade cabinets that have specific titles tied to them. We got Street Fighter, Centipede, Asteroids, and a couple of others. Actual cabinets that you can pre-purchase because they launch in September from them, and you can now have arcade cabinets at actually a really reasonable price. The same price that a PlayStation 4 Pro costs, $399, can get you an arcade cabinet as well. So if you're one of those retro video game collectors, or you have a man cave and you're looking for arcade cabinets, it doesn't have to be authentic. It doesn't have to be the exact ones or the exact kinds. My thought process is these are probably just Raspberry Pis that they put these particular games on, built an arcade cabinet around it with the GameStop brand on it, obviously. I mean, the thing's not littered with, like, GameStop logos, don't get me wrong. I'm sure the logo is on there somewhere. It's not riddled with the logo. It's riddled with the game company and then artwork from the game itself. Like, the Street Fighter cabinet, to me, it actually looks really, really cool. And out of all the ones that they announced that are coming in September, the Street Fighter one is the one that I would actually really, really like. And at $399 is actually not a bad price considering you're getting a cabinet. Look past the game itself. And Street Fighter is a great game to have on an arcade cabinet anyway. But just look at the fact that you're getting a retro-styled cabinet, arcade cabinet. And if you're one of the ones like me that has a man cave or a game room, or an office space that is kind of game centric. If you see any of my Twitter photos or whatever, you kind of see the explosion of stuff that has happened on my desk and around it. An arcade cabinet would be phenomenal in there. I'd be all for it. Same price as a PlayStation 4 Pro. I would actually be all in. Now, we got to look at this, though. Is this something that GameStop came up with just to kind of help drum up revenue or to kind of help bring people into the stores? Because I don't think this is something you can walk into a store and purchase. I think it's something that has to be shipped to you just due to the size. You're not going to walk into a GameStop store like, I need to pick up my pre-order copy of the Street Fighter 4 or the not Street Fighter 4, but the Street Fighter arcade cabinet. Oh, and by the way, can you help lift it into my truck? Because it's not going to fit unless you have like one of those big flatbed trucks. But if you have like a standard car or something like that, it's not going to fit in that. So this has got to be something that's like online and they deliver it to your home. Or maybe they're just trying to increase their online presence. We all know that Amazon kind of controls that market right now. It controls all of that. Could this be GameStop just increasing their online presence? It very well could. But for just gaming in general, this is actually not a bad idea. Especially if it's cost effective. I'd be very, very interested to learn how well these sell. Or how well they do. If these things sell out and they sell extremely well, this may be something that they look more into. We get more titles this way. Before long, they could have 10 or 15 titles to go instead of just a standard 4 or 5. It's very, very true. It's actually a really, really cool way to show it off, you know, for gamers to come look at and be like, look, GameStop is still relevant. It's kind of cool. I think, what's it called? Like Arcade 1-Up or 1-Up Arcade, something like that. I think is what they're calling them. And they have, I want to say it's 5 titles, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say it's 5 titles. I'm actually in the process of looking it up right now. I'm pulling them up just to, because I want to get an idea of what the titles are. Yeah, they're called Arcade 1-Ups. They have Street Fighter, Rampage, Centipede, and Asteroids. Out of all those, the Street Fighter one and the Rampage one, I'd actually kind of be interested to see what it looks like. Now, these are not full-scaled arcade units. Let me clarify this before we go on. These are not like the full, humongous arcade cabinets that you're used to playing when you were a kid. These are 3/4 scale arcade units. You can play it seated or standing up, so it's about 45.8 inches high with a 19-inch width and a 23-inch diameter. This thing weighs about 63 pounds. And here's the kicker. You got to actually put it together. So they say it's got a simple assembly, so you can actually assemble it pretty easily. It's got arcade-style controls and gameplay-authentic arcade joysticks, trackballs, buttons, and sound-true arcade tactical feels. Plays exactly as you remember. It has no quarters, or no quarters required. Adjustable volume cabinet designs, official license, authentic cabinet artwork, licensor approved gameplay multiplayer controls on a 17-inch LCD screen. And these are going to be available on the 25th of September, all 4 of these. And like I said, they have Rampage, they have Street Fighter, Centipede, and Asteroids. Those are their titles. So I'm interested to think, what do you guys think about these? You know, is this something kind of cool and unique? Is this something that you may find interesting? Because it seems like GameStop is trying to do more and more that they can to kind of up their exclusivity. Because this is the only place you're going to find them right now. The arcade one-ups you can only find at GameStop. There's a couple of collector's editions that they announced that you can only find at GameStop as well. So it seems like GameStop is trying to amp more and more their exclusivity to certain things. Collector's edition seems to be the easiest thing to do. Even though there are some of the collector's editions I really wish I could have got my hands on. Just weren't really able to. We did secure us a Fallout Power Armor edition. Cannot wait to do an unboxing video for that one. We got a World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth one coming. We'll do an unboxing video for that. And we're trying to get a hold of a Spider-Man one for the PlayStation 4. As of right now, we are unable to, but we are still trying to secure one. Hopefully we can get one in. I would love to do an unboxing video for that. But I wanted to know your guys' thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts on the arcade one-ups that are being offered from GameStop? Is this cool? Is this interesting? Do you think it's overpriced? Because you can essentially build your own. My guess is probably for a little bit cheaper. Maybe. I mean, a 17-inch screen television doesn't cost all that much. But what are your guys' thoughts? Is this a cool idea? Is this something that you can kind of look forward to? Are you going to shop for these? Would you buy them? Because out of the ones that I mentioned, the Street Fighter one's the only one that really kind of struck a chord with me. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions. That's going to do it for this show this week. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming and joining with us. We had a lot to talk about, mostly coming from the way of what Microsoft, the rumors are from their new system. So I thank you guys so much for listening. Let us know what you guys' thoughts are on what we talked about today. You can let us know in the comments section below. You can also let us know on our comments through the different podcast avenues that you listen to us through. Make sure you follow us on our website. We are at www.GameNightLounge.wordpress.com. We are on Twitter at The Game Night Lounge. You can also follow me personally on Twitter at KODXFactor. You can follow us on YouTube. Our channel is The Game Night Lounge. And you can also follow us on, we got Twitter or Facebook. We're on Facebook at The Game Night Lounge, so just follow our page there. So thank you guys so much for listening. I am KODXFactor. This is The Jump Off. We are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network, and all the guests that appear on this show and future shows are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network as well. Until next week, everybody, game on.